Welcome to episode 26 of the Sports Geek podcast. On today's episode, we talk crisis management and fan engagement with the Essendon Footy Club out of their new facilities. And we also look at where our team's moving online.
Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast, the podcast built for the sports digital marketer. And now, here's your host, who wrote the intros while flying across country, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. That's right. My name is Sean Callanan, and thank you very much for listening to the Sports Geek podcast. This is episode 26. You can find all the show notes at sportsgeekhq.com/26. Really looking forward to this show. I had a good chat with the guys at Essendon, Justin Rodski and Marc Bertieri. Have a bit of a chat about what happened over the last 12 months. Just to give my international listeners a bit of background before this interview, the Essendon Football Club went through effectively what was called a supplement scandal, where they were investigated by the AFL, and there was a lot of legal proceedings and very much a cloud hanging over their season. They were eventually, the findings came in, and they were eventually suspended from participating in the finals or the playoffs, and their coach has been suspended for 12 months. So it was a really big news story, and one that did take a lot of crisis management, so we talk about that with Justin and Marc. And then a little later on, I chat to Francis about dealing with trolls and some recent development with the guys at Sydney FC and how they handled it, and also where teams are moving online. Are they moving away from Facebook, and what can sports do about that? But first, here's my chat with Justin Rodski and Marc Bertieri from the Essendon Football Club. So here I am at the new facility for the Essendon Football Club with a couple of savvy digital guys, Justin and Marc. So first of all, can I get you guys to introduce yourselves and tell us what you do at the Essendon Footy Club? So first, Justin.
Yeah, Justin Rodski. I'm the General Manager of Communications and Digital Media at the club.
Yep. Marc Bertieri. So I'm the digital marketing manager. So I play a role in social media, the in-game presentation, also the on-site advertising management, bit of mobile app and bit of email communication as well. So
I guess the first thing is coming to this new facility. You've only just moved in. Justin, you want to tell us a little bit about the plans that the Bombers have had and obviously there's still construction happening.
There is.
Hear that banging out the back of the move out here, the move from traditional home of Windy Hill and now out to the new facility.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a massive move. Nearly 90 years at Windy Hill. A lot of tradition and heritage there, and a lot of connections with the local community. It's very much started as a pipe dream to come out here about 3 years ago. Unfortunately, Windy Hill, with the footprint size, just couldn't cope with the demands of what the football club needed. Out here, we're on about 3 times the footprint of Windy Hill, 100,000 square metres, largest flexible indoor training space in Australian sport. We've got our own pool, rehab facilities, hot and cold baths. There's a basketball court, a massive gym, 2 ovals, one the size of the MCG, one the size of Etihad. There's a 1 kilometre running track around the precinct here. Huge admin facilities, community space. You're sitting in the boardroom here, which is a lot bigger than what we had at Windy Hill. So, in terms of a multi-generational outcome for the Essendon Football Club, the High Performance Centre here has been absolutely fantastic. $26 million worth. This is what you get. And it was something that the club desperately needed. We'd fallen behind the rest of the competition, and in this day and age, new facilities aren't going to win you a premiership, but having the facilities and the resources to be able to attract the best people to the club, not just the best players, but the best people to work here, both in administration and in football, is critical, and that's why we made the move. It's been really exciting. All of the staff and the football department and the players that are starting to filter back now, there's a renewed energy, and obviously off the back of everything that happened this year, the timing of this just couldn't have been better. So we're really excited to be here, and it's, as I said, it's created a great sense of energy and excitement about the future.
Yep, and Marc, you took me through a bit of a tour before, and just the fact that the admin staff, marketing staff, and the footy department and the players are so far closer proximity than you were at Wendy Hill. Like, how's that changed? It made your job a little bit easier from a digital point of view.
Yeah, just it's really easy to access your coaches and your players downstairs in the gym, and just the flow of the building is just fantastic for that. And it's just a lot easier touch points as far as having administration. Like, we used to have membership on a different floor, and we've got everybody just in the one place within the one office. So it's been fantastic for that, and it just makes it easier for everybody all around so far. And it's, as Justin said, it's been extremely exciting.
So, Justin, you just did touch on just before about the year that you guys have had.
Yep.
And it's been highly publicised, the whole supplements scandal and the investigation and all the I guess the media hype around it.
Yep.
I was also always watching it from your point of view and sort of seeing trying to manage that comms. How hard was it, one, embracing your fans and taking them through that journey, and also having that. I've said before, I think I said on half, social media and digital and lawyers don't work well together. Mm-hmm. Like, what was it like trying to manage that crisis?
Oh, extremely difficult. There's no doubt that, from the very start, we're on the back foot. Often, in any crisis situation, Rule 101 is to know the facts. And unfortunately, from day one, we didn't know the facts, and we were continually learning new information, every day and every week, as the public were. There was an enormous amount of speculation, rumour, innuendo in the media. Thankfully, and it's something that's been overwhelming, really, in terms of response. Our fans have been incredible. We decided from the very start that we would be as open and transparent as we possibly could with them through all of our channels, understanding that the most direct way was through our social media, and we made a point to try and communicate with them as often as we could. At times there was information that was too sensitive and we couldn't, but ultimately the challenge of the whole communication piece around what took place was extremely difficult. It was an extraordinary set of circumstances, unprecedented in Australian sport. So we just did the best we could to inform them with the information that we had along the way. I don't know if you want to add.
Yeah, Marc, I work with a lot of guys like yourself, and whether it's going through a losing streak, and you get to read, fortunately and unfortunately in some instances, everything that gets taken. How did you be able step back and not take everything so personally? I know I've had a few digital guys that going through a bad losing streak, they start feeling defensive and want to defend the club or defend the player. Must have been very tough for you, because you're right on that front line of everything. No,
exactly right. And I worked at a digital agency previously, and some of my friends were saying that then when they're meeting their clients and stuff like that, they're saying, imagine being the Essendon social media guy at the moment, like that was a joke, and they're like, we actually know that guy. But no, it was extremely tough. I've supported the club my whole life, and you've just got to try and just inform to the best that you can, as far as if there's a view out there that's just not, just your standard troll saying, whatever they say, you've got to try and inform and keep people educated as best they can with whatever devices you have that's available, such as the website, as far as a press release or anything like that. It's extremely difficult, and I think I'm desensitized to a lot of words that come through now. So
it's critical at working at a footy club and in a sporting environment with fans and media that you remain objective and above all of that. It's so easy not to, but it's just critical. And the volume of media interest and requests, and I'm sure social media activity was just incredible. And I remember one night Mike Sheehan was talking at a sportsman's night. I don't remember this one, and apparently he said on that, and I think he might have been joking, but he said, James Hird's going to stand down tomorrow. And of course, someone who was at the sportsman's night had sent out a tweet or something along those lines. And before you know it, social media was just a buzz with the fact that James is standing down. Started to circle into the mainstream media guys, who start then to call me. This was at 11 o'clock at night. I rang James straight away. I said, Herdy, just what's the deal? And he said, mate, there's no truth in it. So I just tweeted it. And then from that tweet, that was used as quotes in stories the following day. Social media went nuts retweeting it. It was just an incredible. It was great to be able to have that immediate opportunity to squash a rumour like that.
I think from a news reporting and media point of view, I think social media sort of became, to a certain degree, mainstream this year, and to a certain degree with the what happened with you guys, because prior to that, traditional media wouldn't report on things being said and rumours and that kind of thing, where they've sort of said, well, hang on, it's getting out there now anyway, and so the Herald Sun and Fox and all of those guys now are starting to almost report that as fact, and it does make a job like yours 24/7 in that instance. And to a certain degree, there's that got to break it, got to be first, and it's very tough from a club point of view, because if there is no news, all you're doing is saying there is no news, and again, you're trying to be transparent, and you'll come across as they're hiding or they're not revealing. It's like, but there's no news. We all just how often can you defend news that's not there?
That's right. And often when there's an article which is 75% accurate but 25% inaccurate, it's do you respond to the 25% that's inaccurate and then just not mention the 75% that's truthful? So it became very difficult to manage what was wrong and right, and so in the end we needed to go down a path, especially early on, and the strategy was that we wouldn't comment on anything. So that hopefully was going to eliminate any of that, but it left us open to a lot of speculation.
I mean, the thing is, if you don't put up a Facebook post, people can't comment on that Facebook post. If you don't put up that tweet, so it is a bit of the baton hatches type of mentality. Moving away from the media stuff, the key thing for you guys is your fans. Like, they are the ones that are throwing your support. So what kind of initiative sort of came out of the crisis, where you were just really, I talked about it sort of, you were helping your fans grieve almost, like taking them through this process, letting them vent and letting them be upset, but saying you're still part of the club. What sort of things sort of just came out of that?
I think the biggest thing that we did was we launched a campaign with the hashtag EFC Listens, and that also included an email address where fans could essentially contact the club through email and also on Twitter and on Facebook to let us know how they're feeling, tell us they're angry, essentially, like you said, grieve about what took place this year, missing finals, ask any questions they had of us, and that's been a really important body of work that we're still continuing. We're still listening, and soon we'll be going back to the fans and let them know that we've listened, and here's our plan moving forward. So I think post Asada and post the season, that's been the biggest thing that we've done, and the fans have responded really well to it. They've responded really well to the club in general. We had a sellout at our Crichton Medal, over 1,500 people. Now, we haven't had those numbers for 10 years. So at times it's amazing. Fans are very loyal and passionate people, as you know, and through adversity, that's often the time when they come out and support you the most, and we've got a lot to thank them for, and we've got a lot of faith to repay in them, because they certainly showed it to us this year, and the club, the players and the coaches are all extremely committed to making sure that happens.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and as far as like our open training sessions as well, it was more of a process of getting our fans all together so they could see the team that they love so much and be close to them, and they can meet other supporters that are maybe going through the same thing. And we really tried to promote those as almost sessions, come and see the players and come and be around your fellow supporters that are going through the same thing. So towards the end of the year, I think we had every single week we had an open session, and the turnout was fantastic, and it gave us a chance to talk face to face with our supporters as well. So yeah, those were really pivotal at the end.
Yeah. And I think, as you said before, the new venue now does provide that change of chapter, new leaf.
Yep.
So what kind of fan events and ways are you going to activate and I guess use this? Like, what does this offer you from a digital point of view? Not only the access, but new content and ability to produce content.
Well, the biggest thing, Sean, is and at the moment it's just a shell, but we've got the space to build a new virtual studio, which is currently plans are well underway to delivering that outcome for the club. we very much share a vision to have a 24-hour digital channel at the Essendon Football Club, which would include, live broadcasts of shows, panel shows, training sessions, field reporters around the club. We ultimately want to take Essendon to the world, and as one of the biggest clubs in Australia, we want to, have a similar output to the big clubs around the world, and we think that a studio here, a virtual studio, will certainly take us to that next level. And video growth, as you know, is increasing year on year, and especially on mobile. The mobile app for us has gone through the roof. But when the NBN finally rolls in, and everyone keeps talking about the NBN, but it's true, video is growing, but it's not quite at the level compared to overseas, and we want to be prepared for when that does arrive, to be able to produce content at a level and give our fans a content of choice on a platform of choice, essentially. So that's one of the main things, I think, building that studio. We'll continue with our TV show, The Hangar, which will clearly be shot on location around the club, and the players and the coaches have bought into that. And that'll be on Fox Footy again next year, with a view clearly that from a digital point of view, eventually the show would end up on our own digital channel. So there's a lot of exciting things happening around our digital space. Marc, have you got anything?
Yeah, just with the more space, and you've got the indoor training hall. Like I have the ambition when we're at Windy Hill that we can bring bloggers, we can bring some of the people on Twitter just to come out to the new facility, maybe watch an open training session, give them live session reports, but really embrace them in this space, because Windy Hill they didn't have the technology and we didn't have the space to operate, whereas out here we've got space and we've got the technology. So Wi-Fi capabilities, stuff like that. It's all very exciting, and it's a dream. But to get a projection screen where people can come to the club and watch the boys interstate, and it's that real kind of club and and facility kind of building together. So it's very exciting.
Well, you've got the similar facility to the guys of the Golden State Warriors, who ran that Google Hangout live from practice, where they were interviewing the coach while the guys are doing three-man weaves up and down the court. So and that your fans would just dial into that and go, I want to be part of it. I want to pick which camera I'm watching at the minute, whether it's the rehab group over in the corner or the guys doing kick to kick or that kind of thing. So I guess just having the size of the venue, you don't have the it was just the last couple of weeks ago I was at West Coast, and their studio they effectively call it a dungeon, because it was the old equipment shed, which is that's what you've moved away from Windy Hill. You've got this space and room to grow. So one thing I wanted to talk to you about was an app that you launched a couple of weeks ago now, I think it is, on Facebook, called Bomber's Birthday App. Do you want to take us through what that does and sort of the idea behind it?
So what it basically does is a user on Facebook would enter their details on their birthday, and from that, they would enter their full name, email address, birthday, and also whether they're a member or not of the club. They then go into a selection panel where they can select 5 or 6 players or the team. They select the player, and on their birthday they actually receive a notification that goes straight to their Facebook notifications, their personal Facebook notifications. They also get an email with a discount or a special offer from the Bomber Shop, and also they get a special, like a birthday greeting that has the code also for the Bomber Shop or whatever discount we've got going at the time. So it was kind of brought about from how popular I saw that birthday cards were in the club, and a lot of the complaints that we received were people saying they didn't receive their birthday cards, stuff like that, and people love to interact with players' birthdays as well. So there was an opportunity there, I felt, for our largest audience, one of our largest online audiences being Facebook, to try and work out that user a little bit more, figure out if they're members as well, just via their data. And it's gone really well so far. We've done a little bit, like we've had one Facebook post, I believe, an EDM that's gone out about it in a news story. And I think we've had an uptake of about 4,000 people so far. And it's just something that we see that's going to be built out. It'll be bigger, it'll be better, we'll work out all the intricacies.
Well, I guess the good thing is it's not 25 words or less campaign. It's an annual thing. It's like you sign up and you're going to get, a customised email from Joe Watson saying, happy birthday. So, as a Bombers fan, you're going to go, yeah, cool. And, the other side of it is you're collecting the data, you're qualifying your fans, you're finding out who your members are and engaged. Right. From like you said, from a promotion point of view, you pretty much just did the, hey, here it is, let it out. Yep. Is there any plans to sort of further extend that, using other advertising products?
Well, we're just trying to iron out all the kinks in it at the moment. So, and just to see what the reaction is. Like, we've had good feedback, we've had negative feedback. But the main messages that we're talking about at the moment is it's something that can be built out. Like, ideally, I'd love to get those 5 or 6 players in a room just before the season starts and get them to go through happy birthday every single name that we can possibly think of under the sun, and you actually have a video message from Job or whoever it might be. So that's the extent that I'd like to take it out to. But it's just something that's as far as a piece of technology that is new. I haven't seen brands really use like that personal Facebook notification before. And and I just thought it'd be a really good combination with a birthday kind of a greeting. And as soon as we get those little kinks and stuff ironed out, I think that it can be something that can remain in the club for the next 5 years or whatever, so we can really build it out to something special. So,
well, that's the thing. I mean, once people start having their birthdays, if you haven't had a birthday for 9 months, you've got to wait until next July or September or whatever to get the notification. So it is going to be dribs and drabs as people have their birthday. Say, hey, look, here's my card. Oh, you better sign up. So, so what? So looking forward, positively with the new facilities. What sort of plans do you have, for next year with Bomber Thompson at the helm and the plans coming up? I know you just announced a new naming rights sponsor this week.
Naming rights of the venue will be announced shortly.
Yep.
And a new co-major sponsor with Fujitsu coming on board for the next 4 years. So it's a very exciting time for the club. I think the playing group and the team is in a really good place to challenge next year. They're certainly, I think, on the cusp of a really exciting era on the field. And for us, really, it's about continuing to engage with our fans and give them the best possible digital experience they can have and take them inside. It's a little bit of a cliche now, but it's true. We want to take them inside the hangar, take them inside the locker room, give them an insight into what happens on match day, provide them with the analysis and the summary of a match from the coach straight after the match directly onto their mobile phone. They're the sorts of things that we want to continue to deliver our fans. We've got an amazing culture of digital engagement with our fans ever since Essendon had its own website.
Yep.
With Danny Bishop and.
So for the people who don't know, Essendon were effectively opted out of the AFL website deal and had their own website for how
13 years.
13 years, and you only just came back 2 years ago?
Yeah, so we did a half transition 2 years ago, and now we're fully back integrated into the Telstra network. Yeah, and Brad Patton, I should mention, was the original developer, and Brad Bishop, Danny Bishop also came on board.
They seem like one guy.
They do, actually, they do. So that's been a little bit of a that's involved some communication and education around that transition back, but our fans have always engaged with us extremely well through digital platforms, and we think now that we're really starting to provide them with the sort of content that they want, and with Collingwood, we dominate the digital metrics, and we want to continue to do that, but most importantly, we want to give them the best possible digital experience they can get.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast. Good luck for the off season, and I look to see plenty of content coming out of the hangar, or whatever the hangar may be called when you do get a naming rights sponsor. And we'll make sure we've got links to all things Essendon in the show notes. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Sean.
Sign up for Sports Geek News at sportsgeekhq.com/sign up now.
Thanks again to Justin and Marc for having me out at the newly named True Value Solar Centre. It was christened just a couple of days after the interview, and also what happened a couple of days after the interview is that they changed their Twitter handle. They lost the underscore. They were Essendon _FC. Now they are just Essendon FC. A little bit cleaner. It doesn't require to change keyboards to get to that pesky underscore. Which actually leads me to a listener question. Maddie_Stevens, if you're following him on Twitter, did email me asking me a few questions around personal branding and how he could break into sports digital. And he did ask, should he change his Twitter handle and get rid of the underscore? I don't have any underscores, and I was lucky enough to get rid of the underscores from my account. So I had Sean Callanan from the get-go, but Sports Geek originally was _Sports Geek _. So if you can get rid of it, you can. But to a certain degree, it doesn't really matter in the wash-up of everything. It is a little bit tough to type at times, but really the content that you share and the connections that you make are far more important than underscores. And I can only quote Will Anderson, whose Twitter handle is Will_Anderson, who joked that he's going to have his middle name changed by deep poll to underscore. So I don't think it matters too much, Maddie. I think what does matter is the content that you share and the connections you make on Twitter, and even probably more so on LinkedIn. Make those connections now and connect with the people you want to work with, and then share the content that form your opinion, what you're reading, and share the work that other people are sharing to make those connections. And I guess my other suggestion would be to use the tools and use the platforms that you hope to be working on. So Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, really dive in deep and try to understand the inner workings of them. If you want to work in sports digital, I'm a real big fan of the term from my IT days, dog fooding, and that is a term where it's a means of eating your own dog food. If you're a developer, you have to use the applications or tools that you're building, and then that way you figure out all the things that are wrong with them so you can fix it. So I'm a big believer in that as well. If you're going to work in the sports digital and the sports social media space, then you must be a person that uses it every single day to really understand how it can work, because you really want to do your testing on your accounts and not when you get given the keys to a team or a brand account. Okay, now on to my discussion with Francis Leach on ABC Grandstand.
Live and direct from Sports Geek HQ, Sean Callanan with the world of sport and the digital realm. Hello, Sean. How are you going this morning?
I'm good, thanks, Francis. Yeah, doing well.
We'd both rather be in San Francisco right now, though, wouldn't we?
Yeah, we are. We would be. If you go and look on the hashtag SFBatKid, you'll see something pretty special happening. I'm just it's not great for radio, but I've just shown you the front page of the Gotham City Chronicle. But a young boy fighting leukemia, he had his Make-A-Wish come out, and he said he wanted to be Bat-Kid. And so they started to put something together, and they put it out to the public, and it's actually happening now. He's already stopped a bank robbery. He's had a tour down the main street with thousands of people cheering him on, and I think he's now headed out to meet up with the guys of the Giants. I think he's saving one of the team mascots. So
have a look at the hashtag SFBatKid and take it in. The size of the crowds involved. The costume that this kid is wearing is just extraordinary. He looks like he's walked straight off the set of the latest Batman franchise flick. He does have a car. Yes, he does have a Batmobile. And this is all sort of organically taken on this massive momentum through social media.
Well, that's the thing. The Make-A-Wish Foundation said, they do get wishes all the time, and this was a little bit extreme. That he said he wanted to be Bat-Kid, but once they started putting it out there, that like the whole of sort of San Francisco got behind it, and yeah, just I woke up this morning and just the flow of information and the fans sort of getting behind it in the whole of San Francisco. And why wouldn't you? This is his kids, one wish, and they all want to get behind it. And the fact that people are cheering from 5 stories down to watch this kid run down the street is a really good story.
It certainly is, and it reminds us of I guess the positive impact that social media can have, because elsewhere in the world we do tend to find out the negative effects of it. And one of them is in the world of sport. And it was interesting. We had Frank Friend on the program yesterday. I wanted to talk to you about this as well. And he responded last week to some nasty and toxic comments via Facebook, I think it was, towards some of his staff and some of his players and people involved with Sydney FC, and wrote a blog about it and talked about the impact that it had on them. And there was an interesting discussion around that. Did he just fuel the fire of the trolls by doing so, or did he actually raise a serious issue in relation to conduct online and personal responsibility? I asked him about it yesterday when he joined us here on Grandstand Breakfast ahead of Sydney FC's successful 2-0 win over Melbourne Heart, and the reasons why he went to the lengths that he did to actually bring this to light.
It's a new beast in terms of sport. It's another thing you have to deal with as clubs, as coaches, as players. 20 years ago it was not around, so it wasn't an issue. But sometimes there's the schoolyard mentality. If one person says something, you'll have a few that jump on board, and mostly anonymously. It's a necessary evil we all have to deal with.
Frank Farina there. And I know, Sean, that you actually work very closely with football clubs, sporting franchises and sports people to try to navigate a way through this.
Yeah, it is very tough because, everyone does get a voice. And it is that, I'm going to try to say it, the anonymity that sometimes the internet can provide can give some people a little bit more of a puffed out chest.
It appeals to our lesser angels.
Yeah,
Let's put it that way.
It does. And I guess, one of the things that I do when I'm talking and working with athletes particularly, like as they sort of cut more of a brunt of it than a club, is that they've got to have a pretty thick skin about it and, but really I really try to embrace that positive side of it, because there will be those fans. And I like to think that sports fans online mostly, and I use Seth Godin's term, positive deviants. Most of them are in that I'm a supporter. I want to show the support, but there is that very vocal minority, and that's the thing. It can appear to be far bigger than it is. And and I've done it before where I've spoken at an event or something, and you see 100 tweets of "that was great, good work, loved that talk," and you have someone say, "Oh, that was hopeless." And just human tendency is that you look at that kind of thing. So it is a tough one. It's something you've always got to manage, and just remember to put that in that box. But if you can amplify the ones that are positive, that are showing their support, you can sort of turn that around a little bit.
So you can actually choose, can't you, what you want to focus on?
Well, exactly. There's there's no reason for you to be following those people. There's no reason for you to, if you've had a bad game or whatever, to go and check social media. It is something that, from a psychology point of view, you've got to realise, well, that there's going to be that kind of, vitriol in some cases there. And it's, in some instances, you go, well, I don't need that.
Do you advise your people not to respond to trolls in the way that Frank chose to?
Primarily because trolls really thrive on oxygen. They really do want that recognition of, I've got to them. That's what they're going for. So there is a certain part of it. It's like, don't give them the air, don't give them any oxygen, don't acknowledge them. But there is some points where, and I think this is where Frank was trying to get to, was to say, it is very difficult. The people who are behind us, hey, you support us. And that's where, your community can come in and say, hey, that's out of line, pull up. And your fans can be the ones that are effectively providing that first level defence. And we do see that with a lot of clubs. If a post goes up for a club or a player, and there'll be a few, and sometimes it'll be opposition supporters, they're not actually actual supporters of your team. They just sort of, there's an easy beating. So you've got to, as a fan of your club, you want to show a bit of spine and say, that's not on.
Sean, we look at the traditional forms of social media. It's funny to say that now because it hasn't been that long in the realm that we've had these, Facebook and Twitter, but they're becoming in some ways first-generation platforms, aren't they? And younger people are moving away from them altogether, which is going to make it harder and harder for that conversation to be curated by sports organisations.
Yeah, definitely. And more of these new platforms that we're sort of seeing, we're already seeing teens, and when I was doing research for this, that there's articles saying teens are moving away from Facebook.
Dad book.
And that's preferably the reason why, because their parents and grandparents are on there and it's not cool anymore. But when I was looking at it, those articles have been written 3 years in a row. So it's sort of like, it's September, October, November, let's write that article. But there is a bit of movement of teens moving across to new platforms like Tumblr, where it's a little bit darker to a certain degree, and they can be a bit more themselves and express themselves. And then there's a big move to more mobile apps and more of these messaging apps like WhatsApp and Snapchat, those kind of ones that aren't public and that aren't open in the same way.
What makes them different? So take Snapchat. What makes that different?
Well, Snapchat, unfortunately, it's sort of known for the whole sexting realm, because the idea of Snapchat is you are friends with someone, you can send them a picture, they get to see that picture for however long you say. So I can say, send you something, say you can see it for 5 seconds. You've got to hold your thumb on on the picture to see it. If you take your thumb off, the picture goes away and it's destroyed. So it's sort of meant to be, just a little message and boom, it's gone. They obviously had a whole lot of issues around sexting and people sending inappropriate photos, and then kids and that thinking, oh, cool, because it's getting destroyed, my photo won't get done. But people were screenshotting it, or they were taking another camera and taking a photo of their phone. So it obviously lends itself to a whole raft of issues. And because of the non-public nature of it, the fact that it's all completely private does lend itself to that bullying mentality, and makes it really tough as a parent, if you're looking at your teens and that kind of thing, to help police that and keep an eye on what your kids are doing.
And I guess also in the realm of, say, what you're talking about before, even in a sporting context, the idea that you can have some sort of community that can self-police those sorts of poor behaviours gets even more difficult in an environment where there's a proliferation of platforms, and also the instantaneous nature of it means that some of it's going to come and go really quickly. Yeah,
so I mean that's the danger of those platforms themselves. But the other danger from a sports point of view is that if teens and younger kids are moving to these platforms, how are sports going to connect with them? So, that's something to be seen. Snapchat is. I don't see the benefit of it. I mean, they're trying to move into the telling stories and public type of thing. So a sports team could be on Snapchat and put it up and say, oh, you want to see a picture inside the rooms, it's going to be up there, it's going to be there for 24 hours and you can see it. So that they're trying to move into that space, but it's sort of built on a private messaging type of system. And, there will be, again, digital natives, athletes that are coming up the ranks that are that are using these products, and again, they're probably using it with their friends. And then if they start letting fans leach into that group, then they're getting into that problem territory.
You're about to take off to Sydney to talk to the Socceroos?
Yeah, the Socceroos are in camp, and so we're going to go up and talk to them about some of the activations that we're going to be doing. We've done Socceroos chat before, and we'll do some things on Facebook. So really just some ideas for them as athletes to be really good digital citizens, how to engage with fans, and I guess how they can leverage what is going to be an absolutely massive opportunity at the World Cup next year. We really want them to be primed to be able to share that inner sanctum experience, and what better way than coming from the players themselves, especially with who knows what rules FIFA and that would come out with, what you can and can't do. I think the players will get a free pass on a lot of that. So it'll be really advantageous for the Socceroos to be able to get that content from the players.
Sharing a once-in-a-lifetime experience right across the globe. Good on you, mate. Have a good trip, and we'll talk to you next week. Sean Callanan, where can we find you again? Sports Geek HQ?
SportsGeekHQ.com or Sports Geek on iTunes.
It's Grandstand Breakfast.
Follow Sports Geek on LinkedIn. SportsGeekHQ.com/LinkedIn.
It was good to catch up with the Socceroos a couple of days before their match against Costa Rica. It's really good when you're trying to train athletes to give them some actual examples of what they can do. Rather than just say be engaging and talk to the fans, it's really good to show them how to do it. Because you've got to remember, they're not digital marketers, they're not content producers, they're athletes first and foremost. So giving them a few tools around, this is how we're going to do a chat session, this is how we answer fans, this is how to favourite a fan's tweet to show them that you've seen it, is really valuable, and just gives them some simple tools for them to take away. The big thing that we do with athletes is time management and understanding where to keep social media in their schedule. Speaking of time management, that clock reminds me to wind up this show. Episode 26, you can get the show notes at sportsgeekhq.com/26. Now, who do I dedicate this episode to? Had a few nominations come in via Twitter for Gavin Brown, Wade Boggs, Rod Woodson, but because I spoke to the guys at Essendon, I'll have to go with Marc Bomber Thompson, who wore 26 with distinction for the Essendon Footy Club and is now going to coach Essendon for the next 12 months while James Hird is suspended. This week, social media posts of the week. Wow, a few real big nominations this week. A couple of honourable mentions I have to throw out first. One to Dallas Mavericks, who do a great job with parody videos. If you haven't seen the Jean-Claude Van Damme Volvo ad yet, well then I think you are living under a rock. But the Dallas Mavericks were very quick, and it's really the key thing when you're doing a parody. is to get it out there quickly so you can sort of catch the viral juice of the original video. They did a Marc Cuban version of that video. So they get an honourable mention. Also another one from Brian Gibson, who runs the Socceroos. We came up with this idea the actual morning of the Socceroos match, where we put the Twitter handles and the Instagram handles on the official team sheet and shared it on Twitter. And that got a little bit of press and a pretty good response from the fans on Twitter just to see the different Twitter handles of the players. But really, I cannot go past Shane Harmon and Westpac Stadium's tweet where they trolled a whole country, where they sent out a tweet in the lead up of the New Zealand Mexico World Cup qualifier. It got a stack of retweets and press coverage around the world. So really good job in showing that any account, even a stadium, can show a little bit of personality and have a little bit of fun on Twitter. This week's Sounds of the Game comes from the Socceroos match. This is Terrace Australis. So well done there, Brian Gibson, for capturing that one and getting out in the crowd. Get out of the media box, people, and get pictures and sounds from the game. Thanks to those who've checked out my side project podcast, Beers, Blokes and Business. This week it hit number 1 in the business category in Australia in iTunes. So again, if you're listening or have reviewed it, thank you very much. For those of you who want to listen, I suggest you go and listen to episode 4, especially yourself, Maddie. If you look, it's an episode on career curve jumping, and I talk about how I started Sports Geek and how I got there. Also, episode 13 is a really good one on motivating staff, and episode 10 is on building apps. So if you go to beersblokesbusiness.com, you'll find out more. You can go to beersblokesbusiness.com/iTunes to get it on iTunes. Thanks again for your support. I really do appreciate the iTunes reviews, both on this podcast and Beers, Blokes and Business. So those reviews and posting it on your social networks, Twitter and LinkedIn, really do help spread the word and help me get a wider audience for this podcast. You can always go to sportsgeekhq.com/SGP and share any app that you like on Twitter, LinkedIn or Facebook. Okay, closing 2 cents. Social media allows you to provide a personality for your team. Live it, breathe it, and more importantly, know it.
Please leave a review on iTunes. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes. Find all Sports Geek podcasts at sportsgeekhq.com/SGP. Check out which teams work with Sports Geek at sportsgeekhq.com/clients. Thanks for listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.